Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. In this video, we're going to learn the 1 to 4 player cooperative game, Tiny Epic Defenders, designed by Scott Elms and published by Gamelin Games. Here, the various warring factions and races have put their differences aside and are united in the capital city. But peace was not destined to last. Outside, the invading forces are preparing to attack, and so the players, as heroes, must rush out to face this impending threat to their new home. So join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. This is the capital city, and it's placed in the middle of the table, surrounded by the 6 outer regions. But I just want to point out, these are double-sided, and each side has a unique special ability. The game can be played in one of 4 different difficulty levels: easy, medium, hard, or epic. And this will affect the setup in a couple of ways. First of all, if you're playing on easy or medium, then you can choose which sides of the locations you want to use and the order you want to place them in. But when you're playing on hard or epic, then you have to assign that randomly. Either way, the physical arrangement of the regions must look like this when you're all done. Now place a threat token on the 0 space of the capital city and on the 1 space of each outer region. These are the epic foe and artifact cards. Shuffle the artifacts and place them into a face-down pile nearby. Also shuffle the epic foes, but then only draw a single one out, placing it face down and returning the rest unrevealed to the box. Next, each player selects or is randomly dealt a hero card and then collects a health and meeple token in the color of their choosing. The remaining heroes can be returned to the box. Players then put their health token on the highest value of this area, known as the health track, and then place their meeples into the capital city. There are 3 different types of remaining cards that all share the same back, so you'll need to separate them based on the fronts. We have the allies here that show a large shield. Enemies say enemy here at the top, and dire enemies have a subtitle indicating that just beneath their name. Begin by shuffling the enemies and then dealing out 3 face-down decks. These are going to be beginning the turn, horde, and destruction decks that we are now creating. Also shuffle and randomly choose 2 dire enemies to place in the horde deck, and then place the remaining dire enemies into the destruction deck. If you're playing on easy difficulty, only add 1 dire enemy to the horde deck, or 3 if you're playing hard, or 4 for the epic difficulty. As I mentioned, these are the ally cards. Pull out the ones that match the colors of the players. So we have a yellow and blue player, and then these you place into the turn deck. The other single colors, like this red and green one, would be for the other 2-player colors, so we'll remove these ones from the game. These are known as group ally cards. You won't use them in a 4-player game, but in a 3-player game, add one of them to the turn deck, or both of them to the turn deck in a 1- or 2-player game. Now thoroughly shuffle the turn deck and place it within reach of the players. Then shuffle the horde deck and place it on top of the epic foe card. You don't need to shuffle the destruction deck, just set it aside for now. And that's the setup. Tiny Epic Defenders is played over a series of rounds. In each round, you will draw and resolve each card in the turn deck. Many of these will be enemies that will be trying to attack the outer regions and get into your capital city and destroy it. So as heroes, you'll be trying to prevent and repair that damage. Once the deck has been depleted, you will add the top card of the horde deck to it and reshuffle, creating a new turn deck for the next round. And you will repeat this process until the horde deck is completely gone, and then you will reveal the epic foe. Defeat the epic foe, and you win the game. However, if the enemies destroy the capital city first, you lose. So as I said, at the beginning of a turn, you draw and resolve the top card of the turn deck. Let's see how those work. Each location has a unique symbol to identify it, and if you draw an enemy from the turn deck, it will show 2 different monsters, each with a matching location symbol. You then increase the threat levels of those locations by 1. Each location has a special ability that the players can use, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if the threat level ever reaches the final space on a location, it is considered destroyed. And you show this by taking the top card of the destruction deck that we set aside earlier, and then placing it face down on top of that location, covering up the ability, which means that it can no longer be used during the game. In the future, if a destroyed region would be attacked again, you instead increase the threat level of the capital city. And this is how you lose the game, by allowing the outer regions to be destroyed, creating an opening for the enemies to attack the capital. We'll learn how you can move your heroes to the different regions in just a moment, but let's assume that the blue hero was sitting here in the ruins, and then this enemy was drawn. This shows us that the mountain region is going to have its threat increased by 1, as well as the ruins. If a player is in a location being attacked, they can choose to defend it, reducing their own health by 1 instead of increasing the threat of the attacked location. Even if a location is destroyed, players can still move to it so that if that location is attacked again, they can defend it and prevent the capital city from having its threat level increased. However, keep this in mind. If your health is ever at 0, you're not eliminated from the game, but you become less effective. And when at 0 health, you cannot defend a location when it is attacked. After resolving a turn card, discard it and then draw and resolve the next one. Now this is a dire enemy, and the turn deck won't start with any of these in it. Remember, dire enemies come over potentially from the horde deck when you add a new one in at the end of each round. I just want to show you though right now how you resolve a dire enemy. For example, this one will increase the threat level of the mountain location by 1, and each dire enemy has a special unique effect. This one says each outer region with 0 threat must increase its threat level by 1. Once resolved, the dire enemy would also be discarded. Let's say instead the blue player had been in the mountains where they could have defended against the dire enemy. They can do this by reducing their health by the number of hearts shown here. Not only will this stop the threat level from increasing, but it also prevents the special ability. And then they draw and place face up in front of them the top card of the artifact deck. And we'll talk about artifacts in a moment. When an ally is drawn from the turn deck, the player with the matching color gains 3 action points for their hero to spend. Now, of course, you have to completely resolve a turn before you draw a new one, but I just want to show you this is a group ally card. And this gives the players collectively 3 action points to divide amongst the heroes and resolve as they choose. However, you will notice it says here that if a location has already been destroyed, then this group ally actually provides 4 action points. Players do not have to use all of the action points they are assigned, but any they don't use during a turn are lost. However, if a single player uses 3 or more action points, then they can spend 1 health off of their hero to gain a bonus action. So let's take a look right now at how you can use these different action points. Let's say that the yellow player's ally card had been drawn and they now had 3 action points. Well, one of the things they can do is move. Each time you move to an adjacent location, it costs a single action point. So what is adjacent here? The capital city is actually only adjacent to the locations on either side of it. So if you want to enter the city or exit it, you have to do it through these locations. Once you get outside, then you can go in either direction around the ring, like this. Some players may find it easier to remember which locations are adjacent by arranging the locations to look like this, which is also how it shows it in the rulebook. So, for example, the yellow player could go 1, 2, 3, which is kind of inefficient. They probably should have just gone 1, 2. Also, take note of the special abilities of the various locations. If it says passive, that means it's always active. And in this case, the sandstorm of the desert means it will take 2 action points to leave the desert. So moving into the space costs a single action point as usual, but leaving it will cost you 2. If you have a hero on a location whose ability starts with the word action, then you can spend an action point to use that ability. But it can only be used once per ally card that is drawn. For example, this one says to transfer 1 threat level from another outer region to the ruins. So let's say the yellow player sees that the desert is about to be destroyed, but doesn't want to move to the desert knowing how many action points it takes to leave. Instead, they could spend 1 action point to move to the ruins, and then another action point to increase the threat level here, and reduce it in the desert. Players may also spend an action point to succor a region that they are currently on. This reduces its threat level by 1. Now, although this does not affect your health, you may not perform this action if your health is currently at 0. You're too exhausted to be repairing the location. Also, you may not perform this action in the capital city. Damage here is permanent. Each hero also has a special ability. Now, some of these are passive, like this one, and that means that the ability is always available to be used in the appropriate circumstances. Others will cost an action point, like this one, that says once per turn, you may restore 1 health point to yourself or to another hero within 1 region of where you currently are. Artifacts are powerful, single-use items that you gain from defending against dire foes, as we saw. An artifact may only be used by the player who collected it, after which they discard it. Now, if the artifact shows this symbol, then it does not cost an action to use, but if it shows this symbol, then it does cost an action. Remember, epic foes, like the Kraken, will not get released until later rounds, and we'll look at that in more detail in just a moment. But let's say the epic foe had been released. The final action that you can take is to fight it. If the player is in the region where the epic foe is located and the hero has more than 0 health, they may spend action points to reduce the foe's health by 1 for each action point spent. It is important to pay attention to the epic foe's abilities, as that may affect how you can attack it. I'm not going to go over all of the abilities of the various regions, as they are well explained on the cards, but I do want to point out the one found on the capital city. If you start your turn here after drawing an appropriate ally card, you may at no cost replenish your health. If a player is at 0 health, they are not eliminated from the game, but as we saw, they may not defend or succor a region or fight the epic foe, unless they're assisted by an artifact or an ability that says otherwise. Anytime a player receives action points, they can spend them however they want in any order. You can repeat actions. As long as you have the points to spend, it's allowed. The only exception are location actions. As I mentioned, you can only use, at most, each one of them once per turn. Not round, but turn. And remember, a turn is just simply when you flip over and resolve one of the turn cards. When there are no more turns left to resolve, you then take the turn deck, and without looking, take the top card of the horde deck, add it in, shuffle it all together, and now you have a new turn deck that you need to survive for the next round. But now, you've seen the majority of enemies that you're going to face. You know which locations are going to get hit, and you have to start planning to try to prevent them from being destroyed. Eventually, this horde deck will be fully depleted. On the round where you would then need to add one in, and there's no more cards in the horde deck, you simply reveal the epic foe. The epic foe is then placed and considered to be at the location that is shown here, and you'll also want to put the gray health token on the highest value shown on the epic foe. Each round you won't be adding a new card to the turn deck, but you'll just continue to reshuffle it. And the epic foe will stay at its location until it's defeated. If the players can reduce the epic foe's health to 0, the heroes win and the city is saved. But if the city is destroyed before that happens, the heroes lose. And that's everything you need to know to play Tiny Epic Defenders. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. And I hope you'll stick around, because in a future episode, we're going to play Tiny Epic Defenders so you can see the game in action. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.